Good morning, grade 11, and welcome back to a new lecture of the distance learning about the same piece of poetry of the last two sessions on to Julia by Norma McKay. Today, inshallah, we are going to go over some different elements of writing the analytical essay, or of helping you to understand more about the poem and the poet also. Today, inshallah, we are going to go over the form and structure. The form and the structure of any poem is very important to write the analytical essay because it applies to the era of the poet, or what was common in his time. Before going through the form and the structure, you will listen to the poem once more to gather what we already took last sessions. So listen now to the poem, and afterwards we are going to talk about the form and the structure of this poem. Listen, please.
Aunt Julia spoke Gaelic, very loud and very fast. I could not answer her, could not understand her. She wore men's boots when she wore any. I can see her strong foot, stained with peat, paddling the treadle of the spinning wheel, while her right hand drew yarn marvellously out of the air. Hers was the only house where I've lain at night, in the absolute darkness of a box bed, listening to crickets being friendly. She was buckets and water flouncing into them. She was wind spouting wetly round house ends. She was brown eggs, black skirts, and a keeper of threepenny bits in a teapot. Aunt Julia spoke Gaelic very loud and very fast. By the time I had learned a little, she lay silenced in the absolute black of a sandy grave at Luskentire. But I hear her still, welcoming me with the seagull's voice across 100 yards of peat scrapes and lazy beds, and getting angry with so many questions unanswered.
Great. What I want to mention about this poem today is that it's very important to mention the form and the structure of any poem and writing your analytical essay in a, I can say, argumentative way, because I want you to apply this form to the other poets in his era. If he followed the other poets in his era, or if he created his own form, or if he pursued the common themes in his era or not. So the form and the structure show you a lot about the poet, and also about the era of this poet. So it's very important to study the form and the structure. The form and the structure of the poem Aunt Julia by Norma McKay. This is an autobiographical poem, so it makes sense that the poet employs a first-person narrative stance. It means that the poet here is, the narrator here is the first person, because the narrator here is Norma McKay. He is the most important character in the poem, telling us about his Aunt Julia. Like all McKay poetry, part of its success lies in his skill of using accessible language in an incredibly skillful and effective way. What was very popular about Norma McKay was his language. It was really accessible, means easy to the reader to understand everything about the poem. He didn't used to use difficult words, but he used the accessible language that enables the reader to understand anything about what he wanted to say in his poem. Writing in free verse is a very important element here, because he used the free verse to create a conversational style and tone. So he wanted to give the reader a conversational style and tone by using the free verse. While the use of enjambment to stop, to use some words or some exclamations or some punctuation that helps him to stop between lines, or between going through the lines. So he used the enjambment and the repetition to allow him to emphasize key aspects of the poem. So he used the enjambment and the repetition to emphasize the key aspects of the poem about the description of his aunt Julia. The poem is divided into 5 stanzas, but there is a very important thing here. Each stanza deals with a specific focus. So 5 stanzas, but each stanza focuses on a separate thing, on a different thing. The first introduces us to the subject of the poem, Aunt Julia. So the introduction, or the first stanza of the poem, introduces us the subject of the poem, Aunt Julia. The second describes her physical appearance. So the poet completes the second stanza, or goes on the second stanza by saying or describing the appearance and the objects McCabe most strongly associates with her. So he started with the introduction and he completes with the description of her appearance in the second stanza. In the third stanza, the perspective moves away from Julia to the way the poet felt when he visited her, while in the fourth, he uses personification to create a sense of her character. So in the third stanza, he told us about himself or about his feelings while visiting her, but in the fourth one, he used the personification to create a sense of her character, description of her character somehow while talking to him. The concluding stanza and the last one reflects on his own frustration that he was unable to communicate effectively with her while she was alive. So he regrets here not learning the Gallic language to be able to contact with her or to be able to communicate with her in her life. At the same time as expressing his enduring affection and admiration for her, he wished he could learn the Gallic language to express her love to her, to her, and also to answer her questions if she wanted to ask, and also to ask her his questions, the most important questions that ended with not answering or not being answered by his aunt because of her death. So this poem at all is talking about the description of the way his aunt was talking to him and his regret about not learning the Gallic language to be able to contact with her or deal with her through her life, not after her death. Okay, so it was everything about the form and the structure of this poem. I hope everything was clear to you, and it was my great pleasure to introduce this to you, present this to you today. To be continued, inshallah, with the rest of the summary and the analysis of this poem. Thanks a million. Bye bye.